So recently, there's been reports circulating around the web that we were supposed to get a new Assassin's Creed game. I'm not exactly sure if it's supposed to come before or after Shadows, but it got canceled because of what the theme was going to be. It turns out that the game that got canceled was supposed to take place in the post Civil War era of America during the Reconstruction era. And I think the reason why Ubisoft pulled the plug on that was because of all of the political tensions that has been escalating as of late, especially with Trump being reelected, especially with the whole Charlie Kirk situation and him being assassinated. It seems like this country is more divided than ever. And you look at some of the stuff that I guess this Assassin's Creed game was supposed to include. I think it's a good thing they pulled the plug on it because it turns out the game was supposed to have a black protagonist who was going to be a slave from the South, and he's supposed to join the assassins to fight the KKK. And I don't know. I feel like it's one of those things where, yeah, it's something that would offend a lot of people. And the last thing Ubisoft needs is more backlash, more controversy, and to lose more money. And and not only that, it's like you look at one of the Assassin's Creed games that came out. I believe it was Shadows, the one where you had a black samurai. That was something that was it was something that was politically inaccurate because there were no black samurais, at least not to my knowledge, back in the day. And and I understand like Ubisoft was doing everything they can to try and like sell the game and all that other stuff, but you got to include a specific degree of historical accuracy if you plan on making a game or making a story for the game. You can't really insult your audience intelligence like that. But but yeah, having an Assassin's Creed game that focuses on the history of this country, that necessarily wouldn't have been a good thing, especially during that time period, because a lot of that stuff with like slavery and the KKK and all that stuff, it's a touchy subject. It's something that triggers certain people, and the thing is, like, the games are supposed to be cool, they're supposed to be like fantasy based, maybe with a touch of reality, and that's just about it. But but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think, having a game that focused on the Civil War period of this country would be a good idea. And and not only that, I mean, the more you learn about US history, the more you discover that what you were taught in school was kind of like a third of the truth or half of the truth or what have you. It's not the full truth. The full truth never really comes out, or you have to dig deep to find it. So, yeah, I think it's good that Ubisoft had steered away from that. And, it should also be noted that, like, you look at some of the games they've come out with in the past couple of years, it hasn't touched like some of their older games in terms of commercial success. Like for example, one of their best games was Assassin's Creed Black Flag from 2013. That did like 15 million in sales. Then we got Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which came out in 2020. That did like 20 million in terms of sales. But you go and you look at the list of all the top games. You have Black Flag, Assassin's Creed 3 from 2012, which did 12 mil. Then you got Assassin's Creed from '07, which did 11 mil. Like most of the best games or the best selling entries in the series came out like during like the late 2000s, early teens. And like maybe with the exception of like, Valhalla and Odyssey. But yeah, I just feel like with this decade so far, like Assassin's Creed hasn't really been that popular. A lot of people feel like the Assassin's Creed Shadows game kind of ruined the mystique of the franchise in general. But at the same time, I don't think it's something that Ubisoft cannot bounce back from or anything like that. But but for a fact that they've been losing millions within the past couple of years, and because of that, they've had to make layoffs. Like back in December of last year, they laid off like 300 employees, and then earlier this year in January, they did somewhere like under 200 employees in terms of layoffs. Um, yeah, I mean, it hasn't been like any like major layoffs, this year, but the thing is, they haven't been really making games that have been connecting with casuals that have been doing good commercially. And I think it's one of those things where it's like they have to be very careful about what they focus on in terms of, content and stuff like that, because I feel like that company is on life support, because a lot of people are losing like interest in the company in general, because I think it was reported like late last year that the company had lost like 200 million. And um and I don't remember what it was. I think it was over a game that ended up being a failure or something. But yeah, it's like the company's market value has plunged significantly since last year. And it's one of those things where it makes you wonder, is it going to suffer a similar fate as EA, where it gets bought out by multiple companies, or it gets bought out by a bigger corporation? Or is it just going to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy? Because I don't know, like, what do they have that people really sink their teeth into? Because remember the Star Wars Outlaws game that came out not too long ago, that ended up being a flop. And the thing is, Star Wars is a very popular IP, and not just in the realm of like television and movies, but in gaming as well. And that game was not good at all. In fact, there are a lot of older Star Wars games that people would prefer, like Knights of the Old Republic, or the one that came out back in. No, there was another one that came out back in I want to say like the mid 2000s. I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, I mean, the older Star Wars games were better than, Outlaws, and those games came out more than a decade ago. So that really that's really an indictment on the gaming industry and how far we've fallen, and the fact that there are so many gaming companies and developers that are struggling right now because it's hard for them to put out decent games that perform well in retail and in different markets around the world. But yeah, I don't think releasing this game, or not releasing this Assassin's Creed game, is something that's going to hurt Ubisoft. In fact, it probably was a smart decision for them to make. But the question is, like, where do they go from here? Like, will they ever, make anything that'll top like Black Flag or Valhalla? In fact, a lot of people are still waiting for a official remake for Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, and I don't think we've ever gotten it. And you would think Ubisoft would have done that, or they would have given they would have like went along with that back in 2023, because 2023 was the 10-year anniversary of that particular game. And yeah, it's like it was probably one of the best, like, it was one of the best titles of the teens decade for the most part, for those who are fans of, action adventure type of video games. But um but yeah, I mean, do I ever see the Assassin's Creed series being as popular as it was during the early teens? Not really. I feel like, the franchise's best days are behind it, but at the same time, I still feel like Ubisoft can put out a decent Assassin's Creed game if if they come up with a good concept, a good story, and maybe bring back some older game mechanics that people were fans of back in the day. But it's really up to the company at the end of the day. But I'm not exactly sure where they go after Shadows, or what theme they should go along with. But I do feel like they should be more original, and they should probably steer towards a topic or a theme that's less controversial in relation to, I guess, history in general.